I have two questions. One would be, what you've been describing is, as you said, not traditionally part of university education. But it has happened in other places. I mean, all the time, in spiritual places, in like churches or other religious places, in free time activities, in all kinds of places, in travel. So why would you say it should be part of university education, which has traditionally focused on our brains, like you said? Why should it be included? And the second question is, how?
Because leaving it out will continue to give us the results that we don't want, what we are dealing with now. Institutions that are singular focused on certain things rather than seeing what we do in life as a whole system.
Would you think it changes when you put it into formal education?
Come again?
Do you think it would change? You would change that by putting this kind of learning into formal education? Because isn't it more the setup of the institutions that people work in, who might have those values, but the setup doesn't exactly help them live them in their decisions?
I am assuming that if we do not begin to train people in thinking, for instance, at 3 levels, with an open mind, open heart, and open will, it continues to produce people who are cerebral, and they go into these systems, they become the leaders, and they simply run on what they know, instead of realizing something else. And at the same time, if we do not pay attention, for example, to Society 4.0, which I described as Society 4.0, where you begin to see business, civil society, and the state as by themselves insufficient, incapable of resolving some of the things we have. People need to learn to collaborate at a much deeper level than is the case. If competition is the only tool you have learned, you get in there competing with everybody else. Actually, we do our greatest job, not simply when we are competing, but when we are cooperating. And that's why, for me, one of the things I got surprised by and impressed by was when I went to spend a little bit of time with students at Chaos Corona Institute in Blekinge. When students are invited to write their thesis as a collective, the ability to negotiate with your colleagues in order to produce such work as a thesis is such a wonderful skill, because anywhere in the world, you are not a lone ranger. You collaborate with other people, and nobody is teaching us. So what do? We sit on our own, dream up the subject matter, begin to research it. It's me and the faculty. And when I fly, I get distinction, but actually the world doesn't work like that. You are always collaborating with other people. So for me, the how lies in, for example, we in the Presencing Institute, and surreptitiously we are beginning to do this at MIT with people that we are privileged to work with. It is helping learners to become, first of all, aware of that. So embodiment of the learning process. So, and I thought it was clever because John talked about that in a very interesting way. He says, until somebody said, what about if we put this in form of a drama, a play? You begin to see that when we embody the process of learning and don't just live in the head, you begin to hear more, to see things that you wouldn't otherwise see if you just rested here. So we have practices through which your whole body is involved in the learning process. And we invite people to go out there and sit and observe what I referred to as is natural to anthropologists. Anthropologists don't sit in the citadels of their offices and do the analysis and write a strategy. They always want to be there, witness what is going on, take it all in, not simply with that, but the entire body system. This thing called me is an incredibly wired system of receptors. And yet we just use a small percentage when we are resting here. The whole system. I was once invited to go and watch an orchestra where when they finished doing a piece, the conductor asked, "Do you see this lady here? She is deaf and she's blind." And she was playing one of the most sophisticated pieces, the percussion. How would a deaf, blind person know when to do that little chime that comes only at specific places? And then they said, "Look at her feet. She plays bare feet. All the music goes through her feet, and then she senses when the right moment is to intervene." If you think these eyes, the brain, are the only entry points for data that we need to shift the world, wake up, because that's not true.
Great, thank you so much, Martin. I'm afraid we don't have more time for questions. Thank you so much.